Covering the veteran artists from pop, rock, soul, country, folk, and blues that influence today's music world, this is the VVN Music Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by VVN Music Radio, the greatest songs by the veteran artists of the last 6 decades, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of the VVN Music Podcast. I'm Roger Wink, and today we have another member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Marky Ramone. Marky's memoir, Punk Rock Blitzkrieg, has recently been released in paperback. It's an unflinching look at not only his time with the Ramones, but also his life breaking into the music business and his work on keeping the Ramones' legacy alive. Marky was born in New York as Mark Bell and had his first big success in 1971 with the early heavy metal band Dust. After just 2 albums, the group disbanded, and he went on to play with counterculture singer Wayne County and eventually Richard Hell and the Voidoids, playing on their classic album Blank Generation. A longtime friend of Dee Dee Ramone, he was asked to audition for the band in 1978 to replace the departing Tommy Ramone. Marky was the first non-original member of the band and was the only one that was not in the original 4 to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He appeared on their albums Road to Ruin, End of the Century, Pleasant Dreams, and Subterranean Jungle before being let go in 1983 over a drinking problem and disagreements over the direction of the group. He returned in 1987 and recorded 4 more studio albums with the band until their retirement in 1996. Today, Marky is the only surviving member of the first 2 Ramones lineups and is the host of his own show on Sirius XM, along with having his own clothing line, Pasta Sauce, and now beer. We talked to Marky from his home in New York. Your book, is it out in paperback or is it coming out soon?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, fine. I was very surprised that it reached that point, you know.
It's a great book.
Thanks. Thank you.
Really tells the story, and it does it in an entertaining way. What made you come to the decision to write your memoir?
Well, I read all the other ones. There were a lot of inconsistencies, and they were okay. They had some good points, but I wanted to write a book that was just void of innuendos and falsehoods and all that stuff. So being the band for 15 years and 1,700 shows, I thought it was valid at this point. It took 5 years to write, so it didn't just happen overnight. You know, it was in the making, in the progress. So it's not just about the Ramones. It's about Richard Hell and the Voidoids and the Times in New York City, other bands that I was in, what it was like growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and the music scene, entering in it at a very young age, and what was going on in society at the time too, and politically. So it's not just about CBGBs. It's everything around it too,
I'd like to go back to the beginning and the cold February night when you, me, and millions of other Americans found the magic of music with the Beatles' first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. But for you, it wasn't John or Paul or George. You were enthralled by Ringo Starr and his drums.
Oh, yeah. He in the book I mentioned that he was very animated, and they reminded me of cartoons, and I was still a kid playing with toys, and there he was, Ringo, and he looked like he was having a ball playing, and I said, well, I'm going to start banging on things and put together a little drum set and all that stuff. That took time too, but I was very impressed as a young kid, and along with millions of other people.
You later mentioned being influenced by Keith Moon and Hal Blaine. Who else was a major influence on your drumming?
Mitch Mitchell did. That was the drummer for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So he influenced me a lot later on after I got into the British invasion. Keith Moon, Ringo, I liked the sound of Dave Clark's snare drum on the stuff he did, Hal Blaine for sure, and definitely Buddy Rich. So a lot of different genres of music there, you know.
Your first big break in music came with the group Dust. And even though you started small, practicing in your grandparents' basement and so forth, it grew into quite a big band. I think the first album ended up in the Billboard Top 100.
Yeah,
that was quite a bit of success for somebody who was still in their late teens.
Well, yeah, it's going on 16 and a half. I had two other friends who played instruments, so we decided to form a heavy metal band, but there was no metal in America, really. It was only out in England for about a year, and we already had the first album written. So we liked the heavy sounds, but we really were doing what we were doing. And again, at 1970, who in America was really heavy metal? You could count them on your fingers. Blue Cheer had Summertime Blues, which definitely had, heavy metal elements. And there were a few other bands too, but Dust was really, really metal. So we were, instead of joining gangs and getting into fights in Brooklyn and all this other stuff, we channeled our energies into music. So that was the result, those two albums.
One of your bandmates in Dust was Kenny Aronson, who, like yourself, went on to quite a bit of success in music with other bands and also doing studio work. Are you still in contact with Kenny at all?
Well, when we reissued the Dust albums, Sony Legacy put them out. So we met at the mastering plant, and we sat there and listened to how the albums were enhanced by the technology now, and it was just great to hear it now compared to when they came out. I mean, I'm not knocking when they came out the sound, but we were able to remaster them, which was great. And a lot of metalheads love the band, so it's just great to see that it's been circulated everywhere, and the reviews have been great on those albums.
After Dust broke up, you played for a short time with a kind of a singer-songwriter softer group called Estes, which really doesn't seem to fall into your normal wheelhouse of style.
Well, it wasn't really on my map, my radar. I just did an album. They wanted me to do an album with them. It was on Columbia. So it was pretty close to where I lived, and I got the opportunity to hang out and meet Andrew Oldham, who produced the Rolling Stones. He was our producer. And I hung out more with him than I did with the band. So, we had a great time together. And that album, I didn't really... I don't care what anyone likes musically, but it wasn't my style. I mean, it was great because of my meeting with Andrew. And the band was really good. And I wished them luck, and I left. And it was fun. It was the rock star life, mansions, pools, cars, the whole thing. But, that's not really what it's about. It's about you enjoying what you're doing, So I got up one day and I left, and that was it. I mean, I just couldn't hang out anymore in Rosendale near New Paltz, because I'm a city guy, and I was very very hypertentious guy. So I wanted to come back to the city and, hang out and be with friends and go out to the clubs every night there. There was only one club, and it was called The Well, where everybody would, meet and drink. So, that was it. That was my, I think I was with them for about 8 months. But we played some good shows, and the album came out. And that was my experience with that group.
After that, you went with the kind of counterculture Wayne County,
Oh, yeah.
and that was followed by Richard Hell and the Voidoids.
Yeah, that was great. Wayne was great.
The Richard Hell and the Voidoids sounds like it was a little rough too, but for a totally different reason.
Well, the album was great. That was a great album. I mean, that song "Blank Generation" was the anthem in New York City for what we were doing, punk rock in CBGB's and Max's, Kansas City. That was '76. So the EP came out in '76, and the album came out in '77. But I was only with Richard for, again, about a year and a half, because we did the EP, did the album, toured with The Clash in England, and Richard had a heroin problem, and he was very reluctant to tour, because when you are afflicted with that kind of situation, you never know where to go to get your poison. And I guess he felt safer at home. But I liked touring. So after the Clash tour, which was, I think, 4.5 weeks, I just started hanging out in New York, and that's when I decided to leave Richard's the Voidoids. And then Tommy came up to me and said he wanted to leave the band and produce. He already was on the road for about 2 years and didn't like it. So I said, "Are you sure?" Because they used to come see my group Dust in the Village before they were the Ramones. So I wanted to make sure. So coming from him, I knew it was for sure. From Dee Dee, that's a different story. Dee Dee was my best friend, but Dee Dee had a very child, vivid-like imagination. So sometimes you could really make, for a few occasions, he would definitely had a weird way of storytelling. So I believed it when Tommy approached me, but it was Dee Dee who actually came up to me and said, "Well, do you want to do this? You want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I went to a rehearsal studio, and we were all there, and that's how easy that was. And the first song I did with them was "I Want to Be Sedated."
There was a period, though, between the Voidoids and the Ramones when you were basically not working as a musician. And I think, well, you were working as a musician, but not with a band. And I think a lot of people feel that, once you've been in groups like Dust and the Voidoids, that, you're set for life financially. And yet you were talking about times when you were without food, and you worked for a little bit as a bike messenger in New York.
That was around. That was after Dust broke up, but that had nothing to do really with the punk scene. But when I was living alone, but even with Richard Hell, when I wasn't in Richard Hell's band, I wasn't living high in the hog either. I was, just existing. But, I lived in a basement apartment. There was no heat. There was no hot water. There was cement floors. Had to get into the door with a padlock. There were rats. There was garbage outside my window, because that's where people would throw their garbage. I lived in a basement, so... that's how much you want it. If you're able to endure that, then you can endure anything,
It seems that, with each change that you made in bands and styles, that I won't say from a energy standpoint, but from a drumming technique standpoint, things were getting more easier as far as the technique you had to use, getting into the Ramones and so forth. Was it ever a frustration that you couldn't use the techniques that you'd built up over the years?
Oh, I did all that in Dust, at 16 and a half to, I think, 18 and a half, 19 or whatever. And, I did my heavy metal thing, and joining the Voidoids, that was more like a jazz kind of feel, jazz punk, if you will. Doing the Ramones was just straight ahead 4/4, but it was an endurance athletic thing, different. It was a different style to insert in the songs. I'm not going to play heavy metal drum fills in a song that just calls for a straight ahead beat. But the energy was there. That's what mattered, and I felt that every night I played, it felt great. So, it just I like different styles. I like to play different styles. I also did a blues album with Mississippi Delta blues artist Johnny Shines, who played with Muddy Waters. So I like to play all kinds of music. So joining the Ramones was just different. It wasn't a challenge. It was just different.
The other members of the band definitely had their quirks and different problems, from Dee Dee's over cleanliness to Joey's OCD, but
well, Dee Dee he also had a heroin problem too. So unfortunately, but so did a lot of people in New York, and it's not glamorous, it's not cool. A lot of people succumbed to it and died. So he had a problem with that, and Johnny, in fact, was doing it before the Ramones for about a year, and he stopped. And he stopped pretty quick and realized it was bad for him. So we all definitely had our quirks, but we were definitely unique individuals too.
Oh, I was most surprised in reading about Johnny's kind of extreme right-wing stances on things. He seemed to be kind of the Dave Mustaine of his day as far as being outspoken on such things.
Well, I don't think he ever did interviews about politics, really. We weren't a political band. But we were all different. He was a right-winger, me and Joey left-wingers, and Dee Dee really didn't care. So, maybe that's what made the band great, that we were opposites of a lot of different things. But, John was a Reagan Bush man. I liked Clinton. Joey liked Clinton, and everyone in this country, everyone has their own choice to vote.
We'll return to our interview with Marky Ramone in just a few moments, but first, VVN Music Radio now has their own dedicated apps for iOS, including the iPhone and iPad, all Android devices, and the BlackBerry. The new apps allow you to take VVN music wherever you go to listen to the best music from the veteran artists of the last 6 decades. Plus, we now have over 6,000 tracks being programmed, so it'll be days before you hear a repeat. It's truly the best variety of the music that you grew up with. To get the new apps, just go to the iTunes Store, Google Play Store, or the BlackBerry Store and search for VVN Music Radio. The apps are totally free. That's VVN Music Radio. You were friends with Phil Spector, who ended up producing one of the albums, and that's what I was going to ask is, I know that you attended some of his trial and so forth. Do you ever, I don't know what his situation is with prison and so forth, do you ever have a chance to talk with him anymore?
Well, he's teaching music. He's in there, and he's going to get out soon. No, I haven't been able to do anything because every time I want to visit him, the time is already taken up. I don't live in L.A. I live in New York City. It's very hard to communicate, especially somebody in his position. So there's nothing you can do. That's life, I miss him. I still think he's innocent, and I'll always remember the great times we had together, up until he went away,
He seemed like just an amazingly intelligent man, quirky again, but very intelligent.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could talk with him for hours about things. Well, you gotta be. I mean, to be able to do what he did, and create all that great music, there's definitely a large hint of genius in him,
You recorded many albums with the Ramones. What would you say was probably the high point musically with them?
Well, they already did their three-chord albums. They needed to do an album a little different, but keeping the same sound, like Rubber Soul or Revolver, comparing the Ramones to the Beatles at that point in time and change. Road to Ruin was that album. I'm kind of close to that one. And I loved End of the Century. I liked Mondo Bizarro, which came later. And Pleasant Dreams, to me, is one of the best pop-punk albums I think was ever recorded. So, it's very hard to put them in any position of favorites. They all have their own, different ingredient. But Road to Ruin, I would say, is my favorite. And then again, Tommy was there to produce it, so he knew the Ramones sound very well, obviously. So, he got a good sound on that album.
Things came to a head when you felt that the sound of the band and the way you were being produced, at least for your drums, was starting to sound a little too processed. And with all the other problems among band members, you were the one that was let go. I mean, you had a drinking problem, but that seemed dwarfed by some of the other things that were going on.
Oh, yeah, well, I didn't like the producer, I didn't like the drum sound, I didn't like the album. Good songs on it, but I just didn't like the way it sounded. So, and I didn't think the producer was right for the band at the time. New Wave, they call it New Wave, was out, and they were all using these processed kind of drum machines and sounds, and it was horrible. So he tried to integrate that sound into the band, and I confronted him. I said, "This is not good. I don't like it. Don't mess with my sound." We had a big argument, and I never got high before I played. I never drank before I played, and I never did hard drugs, and I never smoked cigarettes. But it got to a point in late '82. Where I kind of had enough. I didn't even want to play on Times Come Today on that album. Yeah, I was asked to lead the group, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I realized what I was doing, had nothing to do with my musical career. So I stopped drinking, went away, and came back 4 years later. And the next song I recorded was Pet Sematary, when I was asked the second time to join the group.
The band survived really well after Dee Dee left, and was that partially due to the fact that he stayed in the band or involved with the band creatively?
Well, he was the main songwriter, so while he was out of the group, he wrote a lot of songs. But the understanding was if he wanted to come back, he could. But he didn't want to. He was, doing a rap career, and, he wanted to be a rap artist. And then, he was putting out a few solo albums. But, Dee Dee to me was always a Ramone, not a rap artist or, what have you. So, but at least he was in the background writing, the great material.
During the time you were gone from the group, you very successfully went through rehab.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed that a lot of your strength came from Marion. And I just wanted to touch on that you two have been together for, I believe, around 40 years, which is amazing in real life, much less in the entertainment world.
Well, we were friends, and then we got married. We've known each other for a lifetime, but we were friends first, and we hung out for years. Then we got married. We didn't jump the gun, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, obviously she stood by me, and that's important. She's she's one of the original Ramone women, and she was there. I mean, she saw everything with me. So, if you have somebody like that with you, keep them, because they're very hard to find.
What led to the final decision to break up the Ramones?
Me, Johnny, and Joey were in a hotel room, and it was 94, and we thought 96 would be a good year to end it. So we started booking shows as our last shows throughout the world, because you can't just do one last show in one place. You have to go to all the countries you've been. So we managed to do a lot of shows everywhere as a last show. So we thought we'd go out on a high note, which we did, and Dee Dee never came back. So it was time. So it was August of 96, which is when we played our last show, and that was it in Los Angeles.
You had the honor of being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which had to be one amazing night.
Well, it was me, Tommy, Johnny, Joey, Dee Dee, and Joey. Yeah, it was great. It was an honor to be finally recognized like that. We were the first punk band to be inducted, and we were amongst our peers like Elvis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, The Who, the Kinks, the Beatles, all of them, Motown Sound, all the great stuff. So we were definitely honored to be amongst them, and we were very happy that Green Day was able to play at the Waldorf Astoria for us, because Joey passed away. He wasn't around to sing at that time. So Green Day did it, which was really nice of them to do.
You mentioned that Joey was gone by that time, and unfortunately since then you've had to live through all of the rest of the members of the band passing away, which had to have been really hard on you.
Well, they were my friends, family, the business, the band, bandmates. And when, one passes away, then the second one and third and fourth, you wonder what the hell is going on, I mean, were we cursed, or, what's going on here? Because I'm not a superstitious person. But, they succumbed to cancer, and one had an overdose, and, there's really no words that I can express to anybody about thinking about that. It's so horrid, Well,
just in the last month, we've lost people like David Bowie and
horrible.
And Lemmy and everything. And, I came to the realization that all of these 50s artists like Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and so forth are still with us. And yet all of these great artists, almost all of which started really in the 70s, are leaving us already.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Bowie died of cancer, which doesn't, discriminate against anybody. Cancer can seep in your body, even if you're the healthiest person in the world. Doesn't matter. I mean, Lemmy died too, another one. And who knows? Maybe it could be the environment, the food we're eating. Who the heck knows? But then again, Elvis died at 42, so, he was from that 50s era also, you know what I mean? So did Roy Orbison. He was from that 50s era thing, too. But, again, cancer struck a lot of people, so it's a big killer.
Since the Ramones, you have and you still have your own band, you host a Sirius XM radio show, you put out your own brand of sauce, but the one that kind of struck me based on your years of advocating for sobriety and so forth is you now have your own beer.
Well, the thing is, I was approached, and it was on the understanding that I give to a charity from it, which is Musicians Without Borders, to help other musicians from the profits of that. I'm not a preacher, I'm not going to go around telling everybody not to drink, but if they can learn from reading the book, not to get too far into it, and if it could help somebody, fine. But, I wasn't able to put the drink down. So everybody isn't or won't be in the same position that I was in. So I put out the beer, and I'm proud of it.
Word just came out in the last couple of days that there's plans for a major multi-disc reissue of the Ramones' first album. Do you know if there's plans to continue with late?
What does that mean?
I believe it was 3 CDs.
It's only one album.
I think, though, that they're dipping back maybe with some live material.
Okay.
And, maybe outtakes from the studio, which is really popular now.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about plans for some of their later discs, including the ones you were on?
No, I don't really keep up with all that. I just, when it comes out, it comes out. I'm so busy that the only time that I would get any kind of indication of that is from the record company or from, just people that handle our affairs. But I don't go looking for it. The vinyl that came out, the big gram, heavy gram vinyl, that stuff is great. The Phil Spector album, Road to Ruin. But all the stuff's been out already. There's really nothing new. You know what I mean? There's nothing. Everything's out. It's just repackaging.
What I know, of course, I just mentioned all of the things that you're busy with. Is there anything else that's coming up for you as far as new recording or touring?
Yeah, I did 6 songs, and I Ramones them up, and I'm going to have singers sing over the tracks. I'm not going to mention who the tracks, who wrote them, but people know them. And I'm at this point in the stage of having other singers sing on the songs, but in a lot of different countries. In other words, I'll have a guy sing in Spanish, one in English, one in different languages, because I want it to be a worldwide thing, not just in the States, But I have interest from a lot of different people. I'm very surprised. So it's a 6-song. I don't even want to call it an EP. It's just 6 songs, and they'll be out probably April and May.
Well, Mark, I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and wish you the best with the paperback edition of the book. Congratulations on it getting into paperback.
Yeah, call me anytime, if you want to talk about music and stuff.
Our thanks to Marky Ramone for talking with us. We'll be back soon with another edition of the VVN Music Podcast. Remember that you can get the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues at vvnmusic.com, where you can also find back editions of our podcast with guests like Nils Lofgren, Steve Hackett, John Anderson, and Lloyd Price. Plus, don't miss the brand new VVN Music Radio, now available with dedicated apps for iOS, Android, and BlackBerry devices. If you have any comments or questions about the website or this podcast, please send them to vvnnetwork@gmail.com. Our theme music is performed by Yahar. This program was recorded on February 20th, 2016, and is a production of the VVN Network. Copyright 2016.